Section 8 clients. Do you get like a list of people?
My name is Aline, and I just recently.
Okay.
So think about your workflow. Again,
I don't know how to do it.
I know how to do it, and I'm trying to instruct other people to do better in their business, but I also have to do better in my business. Hey, everyone out there in YouTube land and Metro Detroit off-market real estate group, if you are watching, or if you're watching the replay, welcome. We are trying to get this out there as much as possible. We are having some technical difficulties getting to the Facebook group just because StreamYard had some issues with they deleted going straight to Facebook groups for some reason. So keep a lookout on there. Otherwise, the best place to watch this is on our YouTube channel, Randy Stedwell on YouTube. So you can ask questions live, you can catch us live, and kind of go from there. So without further ado, today I have a great gentleman with me. His name is Jordan Smith. He is an awesome person. When I first met him, he was learning about wholesaling, trying to figure out what to do. He had a couple other things going on, and we talked him through. And ever since then, I've just seen him take action upon action upon action. I see nothing but success coming from him. So, we're on here to kind of bring him on here to share his story, what he's been doing, and the reason why he's been doing it, so that we can help others and other people out there can see what he's doing. So without further ado, Jordan, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. So tell me a little bit about we'll kind of go straight into this a little bit, but how did you come about real estate and know you want to get into real estate? We'll take wholesaling away from it at the moment. Let's just talk about real estate in general.
Well, real estate, my grandpa was always in real estate.
Okay.
He worked at General Motors, was paid really well. I forget what job position he had there, but used that money, bought a bunch of rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I guess it's running the family. And then my dad used to do flips before the 2008 thing. So I grew up watching him build houses. Just kind of ran in the family, I guess.
That's awesome. So you grew up kind of, looking through these and seeing what you have to do, knowing a little bit about rentals, things like that.
Very minimal.
Very minimal, though. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I never really tried to learn how to do it at the time.
Did they get you for free labor when you were a kid?
No, I was young enough to where I was just kind of, I remember just sitting there playing with my dad's tools while he was building a laundry room.
That's awesome, though.
But
those are great.
Those
are great memories. Those are great memories. So let's fast forward a little bit. How old are you right now?
22.
You're 22. Okay. And when did you start wanting to get into real estate yourself?
Really, that was about probably maybe 3.5 years ago.
Okay. So you're about 18-ish, 18, 19?
Yeah.
Okay. Just out of high school?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why?
Yeah, same year I was graduating, yeah.
Same year you were graduating. Okay. And what made you decide you wanted to get into real estate? What was that thought process?
Honestly, I forget the name of the guy, but I was scrolling through TikTok, and there
With
was
your generation, it's always on TikTok, huh?
I used to be. Uh, not gonna lie. But yeah, there was this guy, it was an ad,
Okay.
and uh, he like pointed the video at his log cabin. He's like, "Hey, I
Yep.
bought this selling paper. Here's how I did it. Buy my course." I'm like,
Mm,
"Well, okay." He was talking about wholesaling. I'm like, "Well, that makes sense.
yeah.
That sounds kind of legal." So, so, so I said, if he learned without a course, then that's what I'll do. So then I went
Right.
to YouTube and then, pretty much just learned what it is, you know,
Okay.
but yeah, at that point had no idea where to start.
All right. So, so you went to YouTube, you learned about wholesaling on TikTok, and you're like, okay, I need to do a deeper dive into this because I
Right.
don't purchase this guy's course. Um, well, what when you came across YouTube, it's like, okay, at least they tell me what it is, but not necessarily everything I need to know. Is that
hmm
right?
Right. Or it was the problem with YouTube was this guy would say one thing and then this guy would say a similar thing, but it was different.
Hmm.
So you'd think they were
Yep.
the same or whatever.
Hmm.
Everyone's got their own way of doing things. And problem with YouTube is you get it all with
Right.
no way to separate what works together and what doesn't.
Right. So, and that's the issue is you don't know. And this is what I tell people constantly is that you have to pick someone to follow and then just kind of follow them. You can't keep bouncing around, and that's a big problem with YouTube. Is that you get one person, then you'll get 10 others, and they may contradict each other. They may not. One person may want to go one strategy, the other 10 people want to go 10 different other ways. So
hmm
now you're learning 10 different ways, and it's like the old saying, I, you know, was it, you can do all of them, but you're the master of none.
Yep. Jack of all trades,
Jack
master
of
of none.
all, thank
Yep.
you. That's the saying. Jack of all trades, but not master of none. You know, um, it's like, okay, no, you need to master one, then go to the next, then go to the next, and so on and so forth. You
hmm
know, so tell me a little bit about, you know, after you started doing the YouTube, you learn about what it is. How did you come across everything else?
Well, I eventually did gather enough, information from YouTube to, um, I jumped on to get the basics of it. So then,
Yep.
um, of course, I didn't get the part that this doesn't really work on the MLS. So I jumped on Zillow and yeah,
Okay.
I jumped on Zillow, started, calling the listings,
Yep.
trying to act as a buyer but not tell them because that's what YouTube told me to do. And
Yep.
then and then um like one of the first couple agents that picked up the phone, just knew exactly what I was doing and and what I was
Yeah.
trying to do. And then he's like, his name is Adam, and um, you know, he was just real cool about it. He's like, "Hey, why don't I go buy you a lunch tomorrow?" And then,
Hmm.
we sit down and, what you're trying to do is called wholesaling, by the way. And I
It's like, oh, dang it, caught.
yeah, yeah. So then went and sat down with him and then, he kind of pointed me in the different programs, the direction of the different programs.
Hmm.
He showed me, Propstream, um, and then he was actually pretty neat. He gave me a house that he was selling, but he hadn't put
Mhm.
it on the market yet, and he let me put it under contract with him, and then it didn't end up selling, but because I didn't know how to sell it. But,
Right.
basically just kind of do a practice run, you know, of the seller
Mhm.
side.
Oh, okay. I mean, that was nice of him. He knew exactly what you were doing. So,
Hmm.
um, you know, and so that obviously that wasn't your first deal or anything like that.
Right.
So did you keep doing deals with him? How did you get more deals? How did you get that thought process going forward? Did you like, hey, I need to do something different? Um, Where'd you go from there? And by the way, anybody who does want Propstream, we also have batch leads as well. We do have some affiliate links in the bottom. You do get a 7-day free trial for either Propstream or batch leads. We also have batch dialer as well. All of them are really good programs to use, and I have used them. So, all right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
So what happened next after this failed attempt of wholesaling that this really gracious agent basically helped you out here and allowed you to get under contract.
Hmm.
So what happened after that? Did your thought process of, okay, do I need to change something? Did I just need to keep going at what we're doing? Do I need to change my numbers? Like, how I'm analyzing the property? Like, what was your thought process going through that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would have to, jump back to the lunch meeting I had with him, and he's like,
Yep.
what you're trying to do doesn't work on the market. You
Ah,
can't,
okay.
yeah, he explained, you can't call up an agent on the phone and,
Hmm.
you know, try and wholesale their on market property.
Right.
Um, but yeah, then he showed me how to use, Propstream, pull lists from there. So I pulled some list of like, I forget exactly what list it was. I think it was a combination of a bunch of different ones.
Okay.
Um, skip traced them, and then it was like 196 houses, which I thought was a huge list at the time, dialing each number one at a time.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually I decided, okay, what I'm doing now isn't working basically. So yeah, tweak it, adjust it, figure out what does work. Um, but yeah, sat down with that list and just said, I'm going to call this list every day until, one of these people sell their houses. And
Hmm.
then day 3 of the phone calls, one of the guys, his name is Brian, real cool, older guy,
Hmm.
who also I didn't know at the time, but he knew what I was doing too. And um, and yeah, he, picks up or calls me back. He's like, hey, yeah, I got a property, in Flint, Michigan. And it's like, yeah, I want to get rid of it, evicting the
Hmm.
tenants, whatnot. Gave me the whole story, which, I'll confess, I didn't know what most of it meant, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
like,
All
okay,
right.
someone wants to sell. That's all I cared about. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I went and met him, um, in Flint, as much as my mom didn't like that idea, because, um,
That's a pretty sketchy
it,
area.
it was very sketchy area. And yeah, it was one of the worst areas. And then it was one street past that. Like, so,
Okay.
uh, and so meet the guy there. We go look at the house. I get pictures of it. I eventually give him my offer, with my
Hmm.
purchase agreement I downloaded online. And
And where'd
um,
you get the purchase agreement from?
Rick and Zagins, freewholesaling.com.
Okay. Awesome. So
Um,
yeah, I came across them and they're really good people. So
yeah,
I don't know them personally, by the way. So I've only seen them on YouTube.
yep.
So
Yeah. No, I like their videos. Their older ones were real informative.
right.
Um, and yeah, basically I looked up the property on Zillow. The
Mhm.
Zillow estimated it was worth 20,000, so I'm like, how about 20,000?
So Zillow estimated 20,000, and
Uh-huh.
you're like, hey, how about 20,000?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's all I knew. I didn't, yeah.
So you had no
I
idea
had no idea what I was
about how to
doing.
run the numbers or
Nope,
anything like that.
nothing.
Okay, I can kind of see where this is going, but continue.
And then signed it with the guy. Um, and then put it on Facebook Marketplace the next day, and then real estate Facebook groups, because that's what
Hmm.
Rick and Zach Ginn's YouTube channel said to do,
Yep.
and which is a great plan. And
Oh yeah.
eventually, the messages started coming in of,
Hmm.
buyers, and um, scheduled a few appointments, and
Okay.
they didn't, they didn't buy it. And then one guy,
But at
uh,
least by doing that and actually getting some callbacks and some appointments, I'm assuming you went through these appointments and you walked through them and you got some experience doing this, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I remember um, the one that bought it. I remember that appointment real well. And
Okay. All
like
right.
he was,
Let's go
actually
through
looked at
that.
the,
Yeah,
okay,
let's go through that, and because I want to know what you learned about that appointment. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
um,
So how did he find you? I'm assuming in Facebook. Okay.
mhm,
Um,
just a marketplace
and
post.
okay, and you walking through it. Did he teach you what he was doing? Did he let you know that where he needs to be? Like walk me through what that process was like, and
He
what did
would
you
have.
post it for?
I posted it for, um, I think I posted it for what a different real estate software said it was worth, which was higher than the 20. I think I posted it for like 36.
Okay.
And um, but yeah, that he would have, this guy would have showed me what he was doing, and
Hmm.
everything, but I thought I was supposed to already know that, so I pretended I did.
Okay. All
You
right.
know,
Hey.
I was young, and
Yeah. Sometimes you
um,
gotta fake it till you make it.
yeah. I mean, he
All right.
obviously knew, but um, but yeah, just kind of watching him, he actually looked at the condition of the property, which is something I never thought to do, and and
Why
um,
look at the condition? Yeah, it's property. Yeah. Zillow
yeah,
says it's
yeah,
worth this. I'm sure.
you can see the theme here with, my whole strategy at the time was to wing it.
Yep. Yep.
um, but yeah, just checking, around the toilet and bath, for
Hmm.
water damage or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thing to do. Looking at the plumbing under the sink and making sure
Okay.
it's all there. Um, and yeah, he's sitting there on his notepad, adding up all the repairs and stuff, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, eventually we step outside, um, and he's like, "Well, okay, so what's your bottom dollar for it?" And I'm like, "Well, at that time I already knew not to give the price first." So I'm like,
Okay. All
"Well,
right.
yeah." So I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna give the price first."
Like hey, that you know what I'm asking. Come on.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, "Well, what do you have in mind?" And yeah, he offered like 23, and I had it listed for like 36. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, as soon as he offered 23, my voice started shaking because if I'd have accepted that, I would have made 3 grand.
Right.
You know?
You're like,
So
okay, we're in profit territory,
yeah, I'm
you
like, this
know?
just started happening. Like,
You're like, all right, I'm in profit territory. Do not show my cards.
uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah, don't show him you're nervous. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. And then, yeah, like every movie, every good movie watcher knows they should
Uh-huh.
do. I went back and offered 33. He
Yep.
offered 24, just bounce back and forth.
Okay.
And then, yeah, eventually settled at 26. And I'm like, well, that's okay, great.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, uh, went and got the assignment. And then, um, yeah, just basically signed it with him. And then
And how
he
fast did you
gave
close?
closed it in about a week.
About a week. Okay.
Hmm.
So
And
that was your
then,
first deal, and you made 6 grand off of that, right?
right. Yeah.
And what did you learn anything about the title process and how to get that going?
Yeah. Yeah. After they, um, after they signed, I'm like, okay, well, now I need a title company that actually does wholesales. Because I didn't have that at the time. And
Okay.
then, um, so basically, then I looked up title companies, you know, in Genesee County,
Yep.
Michigan. And then,
And by the way, that's his market. So if there are any buyers that want to contact him, we'll talk to you at the end. His information's in the description, but you know, um, so if you have if you are a buyer in Genesee County, contact your man Jordan over here. So, all
yeah.
right.
So
Go
basically
ahead.
made a list of every title company in Genesee County
Hmm.
and called them all one by one until hit Liberty Title. And then they're like, yeah, we have a whole branch that does wholesaling. I'm like, great, I'm about to make 6 grand. Like,
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, and you went through, was there any hiccups with title at all?
uh, yes, yes. There was, yeah, scared me half to death because I almost didn't make anything on it because um, the tenants didn't move out in time. Is my dog?
Mm,
She's interrupting.
that's all right. We're
Um,
dog lovers here.
yeah. Um, but yeah, the tenants didn't move out in time, and the buyer calls me up 3 days before, after the closing dates were already set, and then um, he says, "Yeah, I don't think I can buy it. You know, is there any way I can get that deposit back?" And I'm like,
Mm,
absolutely not. Like,
right? Yeah.
you know,
Stick to your guns. Yep.
yeah. Um, and then I'm like, why? What's going on? And he's like, well, the tenants haven't moved out yet. And then I'm like, oh, that's not good,
Right.
because they were
Now you
supposed to
have
be
it
out
in,
a week before then.
yeah, you have it in your contract that it's supposed to be vacant, right?
No, which I didn't know I needed to at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what you get for winging it. But
Yep. All right.
so called the seller, and I'm like, hey, have the tenants moved out? The buyer says that
Hmm.
the tenants are still there. And then he's like, yeah, they told me they would move out, but they haven't moved out. I don't really know what to do about it. I'm like, well, now what? You know?
Yeah.
Um, and when called the buyer back, I'm like, you know, the I don't know. The tenants said they would move out, but they haven't moved out.
Okay.
You know, like I had no idea what to do at the time. And then eventually met with the seller in person.
Hmm.
And then I'm just like, hey, we got to get these people out of here, you
Yeah.
know, like, and then so he went and talked to him, came back, and then he's like, well, okay. They said they'd be out Thursday, which
Hmm.
was the day before we were going to close it.
Okay.
And then um, eventually they did eventually move out,
Okay.
so I'm like, oh, good.
So
You
it's
know,
interesting how, like the seller didn't want to lift. It sounded like the seller didn't want to lift a finger until you pressed him on it, right?
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes having a conversation with it just gets you a long way, you know. And what
Hmm.
I mean by that is okay, you have the seller, you're trying to have a conversation with the seller, the buyer, buyer has nothing to do with it. He's thinking he's getting a vacant property, you know. But the seller doesn't want to stir up trouble, doesn't want to, they're like, well, you're buying it, hey, whatever, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, do you want me to talk to the tenants? Because you're their landlord right now, not me,
Hmm.
you know. So it wasn't until you pressed him a little bit, to kind of go talk to him. He's like, all right, I gotta get this taken care of. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I can tell you right now, he saw my desperation of my first deal almost not
Yep.
going through.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so being he's an older guy, real nice guy.
Hmm.
Um, just like seeing the young guy getting into the business.
Okay.
Uh, he's like, okay, fine, I'll go deal with it myself. And, you know, so eventually that worked out. And then another thing, of course, they took the keys with them and never gave them back. So the buyer had a locked house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, if that's the hardest thing you have to do, that's what they make drills for. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm
I told,
sorry.
I remember the buyer called me up the morning of closing. He's like, "Am I gonna have this key at closing?" And because this house is locked, I'm like, "Well, the tenants never gave back the key." And she's like, "Well, I don't want a house I can't get into. What's the point in that?" And
Right.
I remember telling him, "There's already a window that's cracked. I'll finish that window and get inside and unlock this house for you." Like I was getting this deal through.
Okay. So I mean, you came up with some creative way. You're thinking on your feet. Again, it goes back to it's what this episode is about. It's you decided to take action and
Just
to
do it.
just do it. Okay.
Hmm.
How can we get this solved? Let's just see what we can do. Also, by the way, if you are watching right now, if you're watching live, go ahead and put in the side chat any questions you have. We'll answer them as we go. It's we're happy to bring you in and interact a little bit. So as we go, if you have questions, by all means, put them in the side chat. Now, for uh, with you going through this deal, you obviously closed it. You made some money,
Hmm.
right? Okay. How did you utilize that money going forward? Did you go into the next deal? Did you how did you repeat this process?
I didn't. Um,
Okay.
first thing I bought, it wasn't a bad decision, but it was a, $300 wireless noise canceling microphone headset deal, to make more calls.
That's a smart decision. I'm sorry. I don't know what
Right.
you're saying, but that's a smart
Yeah, no,
decision.
this one was. And the
Yeah.
next one was a $3,000 Propstream list of a ton of properties in Detroit. And I
Okay.
knew nothing. I knew nothing about Detroit. I'm like,
So
well,
you go from Flint to Detroit.
I know. Yeah, that was not a smart decision. And yeah, I blew that 6 grand so fast. Um, I remember, yeah, I bought a $1,000 car because I was using my mom's car at the time,
Hmm.
and uh, old rusted out Buick,
Okay.
and a giant batch of Detroit properties. Um, I bought a dialer,
Mhm.
call tools dialer, and I didn't even, you know how to set up the dialer or look into it or anything.
Okay.
It's just, yeah, they said after your first deal on YouTube, buy all this
Yep.
stuff, buy more
Okay.
leads,
Yep.
upgrade your setup. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll upgrade my setup. I did, but it was just blew it as fast as I made it. And after that, it was a repeat cycle of finding a house in Flint
Mhm.
and then going and signing the house for whatever the Zillow said it was worth, and then
You went back
nobody
to
bought it.
that.
Well, it
You went
worked.
back. Okay. All right.
I didn't know that's not what you do still, because that's what I did and it worked.
Right.
You know. Um,
So real quick, AM, I what is the best lead gen strategy for beginners? It is not doing what he just said.
exactly. Yeah. Don't go
It
buy
is
a three
not
thousand
doing
dollar
that.
list of a city you've been to one time.
I will answer that question a little bit later, so stay tuned. I will answer it, but I want to get more of a story and kind of going forward. So I just wanted to bring that. But all right, keep going. That miserably failed miserably. All
Oh,
right,
it was
and then
terrible. And yeah, I
okay,
remember I remember her. Yeah. Yep. And yeah, next moving on in the story then. Next um chapter you could say was one of those terrible Flint houses, a
hmm
terrible deal. It was 11 grand
hmm
purchase, and it was completely, it had burned all the way through on the inside.
okay,
The highest offer I got was 10 grand, you know.
okay,
So it wasn't terribly far off. Um,
yeah,
but it was,
yep. I mean,
percentage wise.
you can't get under if you can't sell it for more than you have it under contract for. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
You know. So
You
did you
know,
try to go renegotiate a little bit to get the price down?
I did, but he wasn't budging, you know.
Got it. All right.
And yeah, that one's it led to a good path because that one, um, yeah, someone, um, an agent saw it on Facebook, saw that
Okay.
it was, you know, um, and they brought a buyer to it.
Okay.
And then when the buyer left, the guy looks at me. He's a real nice guy.
hmm
And I still, work with him on some stuff to today. Um, but he looks at me and says, "Listen, I know you're excited about this, but you have a bad deal. When it doesn't sell, call me." And he gives me his business card.
Got it.
Which was kind of sharp, but it was a bad deal.
Yep.
And um, so yeah, basically it doesn't sell. I give him a call, and he's like, I know what you're trying to do. My office
hmm
does that quite a bit. It
Okay.
works. Why don't you come in and I show you how to do it?
Okay.
I'm like, well, that's a great idea, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and, from then on, it was a real gradual process of one thing after another I kind of got the hang of, and
hmm
then the rest of the side was just a mess still, just winging it and whatever.
Okay.
Um, and um, yeah, I remember finding a seller out in New York through through a bunch of Flint houses that he had
Yep.
in the for sale by owner part of Zillow, and um, I saw they were under the same owner, and I'm like, well, maybe I can work out like a package deal or something,
Right.
you know. And so give that guy a call. These didn't end up selling. Don't get your hopes up in this story, but
Spoiler alert.
yeah. um, but yeah, got signed an exclusive purchase agreement. It's like, okay, you bring the buyer, you'll get your, like
Got it.
$2,000 a piece or whatever.
Okay.
And um, yeah, I'm like, so I got those and then went back and called that agent
Mm-hmm.
that I had, you know, gotten good friends with, and then um, just went to him. It's like, okay, I got these deals. How do I sell them?
Right.
And he's like, well, try, going and meeting people in person because Facebook wasn't working, and
Okay.
um, go to local meetups. I'm like, well, do you know of any local meetups? He's like, yeah, the Genesee landlord group.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so bought a membership there and um, went with my grandma and still go with my grandma, 'cause she still has a lot of rentals and stuff. Um,
Okay.
and then made a printout flyer,
Mm-hmm.
in Microsoft where I just typed out the address and then the information on each property, and made a bunch of little books with stapled together pages.
Some old
And
school. All right.
yeah, yeah. And then made a bunch of them and then went there. This is the first time I went there. Went there early and um, laid out these books, like three of
Mm-hmm.
them on every table in the um, building.
Okay.
And, went and sat back down. My phone number was on each one of them too. So, just sat back down and waited for a call. uh,
Okay.
and yeah, and then eventually the guy that um, runs the group there, or the president of it, his name is Ed Constable. Shout out to Ed.
All right.
And
What up, Ed?
um, but yeah, he picks up the paper and he's like, "So who brought these wholesale deals?" And I turned so red.
You just
And
wanted to go in the corner, right? And just
yeah,
kind of like,
yeah. Well, because at that time, like I was still under the impression like nobody can know it's a wholesale deal. Don't tell the seller.
right,
Don't
right.
tell the buyer. You know.
Yep.
So like I don't know how he knew, but he did. He probably saw that they were listed on Zillow,
Okay.
and so yeah, he's like, so who brought these wholesale deals? And red little me in the corner. It's like me,
Yep.
and then completely opposite reaction of what I thought he was gonna give. He goes like, that's really cool, you know. It's like, yeah, and then he's like, yeah, everyone, look at these wholesale deals, check through them. This is exactly what we want in this group. Young
Yeah.
guys coming into the business, just taking action and doing it, and I'm like,
You're like,
okay, like,
whew.
yeah, I'm not as red now, but okay.
Yeah.
you know,
All right.
um, yeah, none of them bought them because they still weren't the best deals. Um,
Right.
and yeah, he comes up to me afterwards and um, we exchanged numbers and he's like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm so glad you're here, you know,
Mm-hmm.
here with your grandma too, and like,
Yeah.
just getting into the business on your own, you know, taking the action, like you said, you know.
Most definitely. Yeah. That's awesome. So, you know, as going through there, and because he gave you a good reaction, now probably everybody in there be like, "Hey, you know what? These aren't good deals for me. They're not, whatever. But can I get on your list? You know,
Exactly. Yep.
everybody's like, can I get on your list? Can I get on your list?
Yeah,
Huh? Huh?
bunch of
Huh?
people, yeah, because they were almost good deals kind of
Right.
thing,
Okay.
you know. So I did get a lot of people. It's like, hey, send me your next ones. I'm like, okay, I'll put you on my buyers list because I did know what that was at the time.
All right.
And um, yeah, and then it was a long time after that before I made another sale,
Okay.
you know,
So what were
just
you
more
doing in the
trial and error, you
Yeah,
know.
so you were just kind of taking action, seeing what works.
Right.
You kind of like you have a little bit of direction, but you're like mainly throwing darts at a board to see what sticks, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a bad situation, but it's like, all right, this is, you kind of still got to formulate a plan. And then, tell me a little bit about how you started to actually think about this, because I know we haven't brought it up yet, but I did start I did a beta test for a wholesaling coaching program. And I actually held interviews for the people to join. And Jordan was one of those people. So tell me a little bit about where were you when you came to me?
Yeah. No, that was, yeah. Um, that was, just a repeating pattern ever since, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of knew what I was doing, sort of,
Yep.
and it was just a repeating pattern of, saving up, so much money and then dropping it in programs to try and learn a little bit more each time, you know,
Yep.
over and over. Um, and then, yeah, the big thing I got from you was um, instead of winging it, you know,
Yep.
the flow chart was the biggest one, you know,
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah. Um, just lay out the plan and then stick to
Hmm.
that plan instead of try the newest thing that you see on the internet, you know.
Shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, just yeah, exactly. It's, went from, oh, well, I'll try this and see if it works. Try it once, run out of
Hmm.
money, quit, okay, deem it not workable or whatever. Like,
Right.
you know.
So by the way, we got about 3 weeks in, and unfortunately, I had to stop it for a moment because I had some personal stuff happen. My mother passed, and I will continue it, but in the meantime, after everything was happening, I'm getting these calls from Jordan like, "Hey, I got this deal. I got this deal. Oh, I got this deal. I got this deal over here. Hey, it's sold over here. Blah blah blah." So, how did you go from that to now all of a sudden you got 11 deals or whatever, and they sold? It's not
Uh-huh.
like they didn't sell, like they sold. So,
Yeah. I
now
canceled one contract this year so far.
that is awesome.
Um, yeah, no, big improvement from winging it.
Huge improvement.
Uh-huh.
So, and by the way, he came to
Um,
me. We started that in December. Okay. Beginning of December. All right. I remember that. So yeah. So tell me, what changed? Obviously, you had some of that, and you just said that the flow chart, the system, having a plan and sticking to that. So how did you implement that, and what did you do differently?
yeah. Well, it actually started back in July, to lead
Okay.
up to answering that question.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, back in July, um, I just made a post. I was out of money again, blew it all in real estate programs. And,
Yep.
you know, uh, so I'm like, well, I need gas money somehow.
All right.
And so, yeah, I had already gained some connections in real estate. They,
Mm-hmm.
most, people in the landlord group at the time, at least, that would consistently go, knew the name Jordan Smith. It's like, oh yeah, that's the kid that comes with his grandma. Um, but yeah, anyways, posted on the Facebook group, for that group, like, hey, I grew up with painting my grandpa's rental properties.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone needs a painter, I could use the extra cash. Is basically
Okay.
how I worded it. And then that was at like 3 a.m. Sunday night, and then woke up um, Monday morning, and I had 25 missed messages from different people looking for paint. And
Okay.
so then I called Ed and I said, Ed, I need your help here. I accidentally started a painting business and I don't know what to charge people. And he's like, you did what? So after laughing at me about it for like 10 minutes, he's like, he's, explained how to, yeah, how to, how painters price stuff per square foot or
Yep.
whatever. And, went over all that. That's kind of off topic. But basically, yeah, I had used that accidental paint company startup,
Mm-hmm.
built it into a actual thing to where I was actually getting some money from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw your post and I was like, hey, I'm looking for people to start this free course or whatever, um, to test it out for the course I'm making. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So I sent a message, hey, I'll do it or whatever I said.
Yep.
Um, and then yeah, that was beginning of December, and um, yeah, after the first couple, classes,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm like, okay, I think what I was missing was consistency.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to, you know, use December with this painting to
Mm-hmm.
raise um, basically a cushion budget. And then,
Okay.
um, so I can have enough money to buy the real estate programs. I planned on
Mm-hmm.
2 months worth. I figured if
That's
I
awesome.
actually
Yeah.
put in the effort for it, then it'll work.
And this whole time you don't have a full-time job. You're working on your own, right?
Right. I used to have a job. I was making cakes at Meyer, and
Okay.
yeah, and then started this painting business. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I couldn't do that anymore because painting paid more, you
Yep.
know.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and then yeah, basically use December to like build up the cushion for it and
Mm-hmm.
the ground groundwork, planning of it, and then um, yeah, around Christmas, I'm like, okay, you know, it should be all set. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
the last time I'm gonna blow my money on this stuff. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm
Right.
sure, you know, but either way, I'm gonna not be able to say I didn't do the best I could at it, and actually
Right.
give it a real shot.
Yep.
And um, yeah, basically started January 2nd, day after New Year, because plan was to start January 1st, but I forgot that was New Year. And
Yep.
um,
Everybody's hungover, so you know.
yeah, they didn't want to answer the phone anyways.
Right.
Um, but yeah, started January 2nd and just called every day. I between Christmas and New Year, I had set up the dialer and
Okay.
um, I guess somehow it saved my information of like previous stuff I've called or whatever.
And what
It
dialer are you
just
using?
batch dialer.
Batch dialer.
Hmm.
Also, link in the description. I get a 7-day free trial, I believe, on batch dialer. So, same thing with batch leads as well. So, all right.
And yeah, basically between Christmas and New Year, I set it all up and um, with the intent of starting January, and just doing,
Hmm.
you know, either 100% or 0%, like, basically taking the action and doing it.
Yep.
And um, yeah, January 2nd, I'm like, okay, I'm done painting.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I'm using Whatever I
So
raise, I'm putting it back into this. If it works, then
so after
I'm keeping
after
it up.
January 2nd, you're like, okay, that's it. We're done. Painting business is off to the side, or I'll hire it out if need be,
Hmm.
like subcontract it out. But I'm devoting my time and energy into this wholesaling thing, and I need to get, like you said, consistency.
Right.
Okay. You develop the plan and you're like, all right, this is what we're going to do moving forward. And how was your first, what we'll say the first month in cold calling?
The first month, I didn't get a sale, but
Okay.
I saw the sales,
Got it.
if that makes sense. Like it was, um, you know, yeah, eventually worked it up to where, I was making 1,000 calls a day on a three line dialer. Took about,
Okay.
6 hours ish. And just did that every day because any more, my numbers would have been marked as spam. But
Right.
um, yeah, basically, I was getting people that said, yes, I want to sell,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, but give me, you know, blank, like give me 2 weeks or give me a month
Right.
or, you know.
So
So
these are
even though
people
I
that
didn't,
these are people you set up in your follow up list
right,
to keep following up with them.
hmm,
And so they're not immediate sales, but they could lead up to sales later on.
right, which the batch dialer really helped with that because they had it
Okay.
automatically set up to where if you pushed follow up at the end of the call, it
Mm-hmm.
added the contact to a different list,
Okay.
you know. Um, yeah, and then yeah,
And what
making
kind of
calls every
lists were
day and
you?
then
So what kind of lists were you calling? Were
driving for dollar
they
lists.
okay? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And Mr. AM over there, I don't know if you're still with us. You're asking for the best lead gen strategy is exactly what he just said was a driving for dollars list. In my opinion, you do your own backyard, you drive for dollars, you know that property looks distressed at least, and call the owners. That is the best list that you can get out there.
Hmm.
So,
It's
so
also
you
the
would
hardest one to
spend.
get.
It's also the hardest one because you got to spend time to go out there and get that list. And
Hmm.
how long were you spending going out driving to get these lists?
I would drive 6 hours in a day.
Okay.
Just, I would plot out a neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
start at noon
Mm-hmm.
until, the neighborhood was done.
Yep.
And I would do that and then be on the dialer for 2 days and then drive around, go get more, then be on the dialer
Mm-hmm.
for 2 more days.
Okay.
So it had that consistency basically. Um, and then, yeah, just kind of got the people that, yes, I want to sell for sure. I need to get rid of
Mm-hmm.
the house, desperate sellers basically, but
Yep.
give me so long, you know, or call me back in 2 weeks or a month or whatever.
Right.
And eventually it was, so that kind of told me I'm on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, um, the calling time and then the follow-up time, you know,
Mm-hmm.
caught up with each other to where now, the contracts were coming in, you
Right.
know.
And how
Um,
long did that take?
that was end of, uh, yeah, February 2nd is when I signed
Okay.
the first one. So it took
So
about,
literally 1 month.
right. And
Okay.
then, yeah, and then that first week in February, I had signed 3, put them on the real estate group, and then they all sold, um, you know, the same day I put them up.
Because you were
Um,
actually running your numbers properly, right?
right. Figured out how to find deals that sell.
Right.
Yeah, run the repair costs, run the numbers, you know, and
And
then
that's
those
the
ones,
key thing.
Yeah, those
That is the
ones
key.
I even recognize, like, okay, I might not know what I'm doing here still.
Hmm.
So then focus on the even lower offer to, for the unforeseen,
Right.
and then, my goal was to just list them for 5 grand above what I got them for. Don't be greedy about it.
Okay.
Just get these sold.
Hmm.
Because if I sell one, I'll have proved the point to myself, basically.
Yep.
And yeah, first one I posted, um, uh, first one I posted, it was 4 hours after, 4 hours from the time I signed it. I had signed with the buyer and they had an EMD in the title company. And
And that is how you do it.
yeah, I'm like,
If
ugh.
you have a good deal, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Okay. The key thing is if that's not happening, I'm not saying it's a bad deal, but it's not a smoking deal. So it
Right.
sounded like you probably could have pushed that price up a little bit.
For sure.
But what you just said earlier, I don't want to be greedy. I just want to get this going and bring in value. Right.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd
So
rather
that was
do 3 sales for 5 grand each than one sale for 10 grand,
right.
you know.
Exactly. So now, do you live in a nice area of Flint or of Flint, Genesee County?
Davison.
You live in
So
Davison,
yeah.
which is a relatively nice area. So,
Hmm.
AM, you said you live in a nice area of Metro Detroit. There aren't many distressed properties. I'm going to tell you, I live in Metro Detroit as well. I live in a nice area. You can go anywhere in Metro Detroit and find distressed properties. I can guarantee you that. Anywhere. Now, in the suburbs, they're going to be a lot less. If you want to move into Pontiac, you want to move into Detroit, those are going to be a lot more, so on and so forth. Anywhere you go, there's going to be distressed properties. All right. Now, if you're talking about in the $800,000 range and things like that, then yeah, you know what? You might not be able to find those, but that's why there's a car and you can drive, right? Call it driving for dollars for a reason. So,
And it works.
and it works.
Yeah.
So,
But nobody
anyways,
wants to do it. That's why it works.
that's why it works.
Untouched
Nobody
wood.
wants to take the time to do it. So you were getting these, you were getting them sold, everything was going, and that's till about where we are about right now, right? So, kind of where you're at, you also help out with some flips as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
So how did you get involved with that?
I was actually Ed Constable, the realtor.
Hmm.
Shout out to Ed. Uh, he gives me a call. Uh, and he's like, hey, if you find a good property where there's enough money on it,
Hmm.
basically, I like you. I'd like to do a flip with you. You know, you bring the house, I'll fund it, and then you paint it and we'll split it.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, you
So
know,
he's more looking for quick flips, like carpet paint, and that's about it, right?
um, yeah, we don't want to gut it,
Right. Okay.
you know.
Something
I mean,
easy, so easy rehab, something small,
easy enough at least, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm. And
So,
yeah, and then it was funny, because I did find one, um, and he's like, yeah, this is a good deal. I'll do it.
mhm. Okay.
And so, um, assigned the contract to him for a $0 assignment fee, and then closed on it. Um, and then, I told him, yeah, I'll paint the outside of it instead of
Mhm.
hiring a painter to do it. And um, it, I saw like the impact of not, yeah, that was the first time I really, I guess, realized how well the wholesaling was going if you actually was
Yep.
consistent at it.
Yep.
Because that week that it took to paint the house, I wasn't making any phone calls or anything
Yep.
or following up with the people or whatever. And it was just like,
Crickets.
I knew it wasn't worth it. Like, it just,
Got it.
yeah,
You're
could
like, oh
feel
my God.
that's when it hit me. It's like, okay, wow, that's what consistency does,
Yep.
like,
Yeah. Being consistent. And it's like, okay, now you got to pick up the momentum. And a lot of times when you pick up that momentum, it's not the same,
hmm
you know? So you realize like, okay, even though I'm 50-50 on this deal with him, it's like, okay, I'm sitting here doing this work, but it's taking me away from the phones.
right.
It's
It's
taking me
like I
away
could be
from
lining up
things.
our next one, but
Yeah,
I had already told him, yeah, I would do it. At that point, I'm not gonna
of
say,
course.
hey, hire somebody
Yeah.
else. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So
like
how did you secure yourself to be able to get half of the profits or whatever your deal was?
it was his idea.
Yeah, but how did you get it in writing?
Oh, no, no.
Okay. So he totally could. So anybody out there, don't do what he just did. Okay. I highly recommend you do it, but you get it in writing,
No, I know the guy pretty well. He's a really good guy.
which is great.
You know.
And that is awesome. But no matter what, I always say get in writing so that, hey, this protects you and protects me, you know? So there's no expectations of anybody screwing anybody over. So it's good that he followed through with what he said. And I'm sure he's a great guy that he wouldn't do that. But I've seen too many people get screwed over that way.
Yeah.
So always, even if it's just a small document listing out, hey, we're buying this property together, he's funding it. And then because I found it and no assignment fee, we're splitting the profits, you know, so on and so forth. So now that document you can take basically and be, I don't know whether it be a lien holder or whether you be a, I mean, it could be something you could enforce, you know. So that's the key. Or you become part of title. So you just add your name on title, you know. So now
hmm
both of you are owners. And in order for him to sell, he needs your signature as well.
Yeah.
So
Something.
yeah. But I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad I highly recommend you get him in writing, you know. Um, because you don't want to come back to that. That's the only thing. So
Yeah.
uh so that's awesome. So you're continuing to do that. So you're doing wholesaling, you're doing some flips. So you're testing the waters because guess what, everybody? Wholesaling is not the end all be all. It is a lead gen to get to your next step, whether that be wholesale or whether it be fix and flipping, whether that be buying holds, whether that be going to multifamily, whatever the case, or commercial, whatever the case, you want. So, with that being said, do you feel that you are? What are your plans for the future right now? I guess I should go into that.
Consistency.
There you go.
It's, yeah, like I've already proved that the process works,
Yep.
so keep doing it.
Awesome. So, how are you combating the painting time?
Yeah, I have somebody else that, I just send the jobs to,
Okay.
and, um, you know, I still advertise, my company, and then they,
Mm-hmm.
because we charge the same price either way for paint.
Okay.
Um, and, so they give me a call, I get them in touch with this other guy, and, um, he paints it, and then he gives me a little thing on the side for sending him the job kind of thing.
So he gives you a referral, you
Right.
know? Right. Okay. And then in turn, he also hooks you up when you have your own properties, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. See, networking, getting to know people, and this right here is why by taking action, he was able to meet these people. By doing something, he was able to get one step ahead in everything he's done, you know. So what is your plans for the rest of this year? Do you or how much in wholesaling? We'll just talk about wholesaling. We don't need to talk about the flipping. Have you made an assignment fee so far?
How much have I made, or how many sales?
Either one, whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. I think I just sold number 8.
Number 8. Okay. And this is March. Right now, we're in March 20th.
May.
And May 20th. My bad. My bad. May 20th. And so we are 5 months in, and you've sold 8 properties.
Right.
That is awesome.
Well,
right.
and then March, yeah, March was I didn't do much in March because it
Right.
was,
You had the painting job. So
right. Yeah, there was the painting job that took a week, and then I was
Yep.
sick for like another 3 weeks, and I didn't really
Yep.
get, make any calls in March.
Okay. So, you've done 8 deals, say average about 5K per deal, which you probably did more than that. I'm assuming on some of them.
Yeah, that'd be the average, yeah.
That'd be the average. Okay.
Mhm.
So, you made a good chunk of change. So, you're looking at, I am dumb stupid at the moment. So, I, 8 times 5, you're looking at, you've already made, and this is only May, you've already made $40,000.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them were a lot, there was some that was over 5, and then
Somewhere
there
a
was some
little
that
bit
was
over,
under
but the
5,
average, yeah.
Yeah.
So around that, okay, that is amazing. All right, that is somebody's yearly salary in 5 months. So it can be done. Now we have expenses, we have all of that going through this whole process, not taken away from that. And we are not saying that you can do wholesaling for free. Is that right?
No, I spend about 3-4 grand on programs alone. Like it.
Exactly. So we are not saying that you can wholesale for free. You need to put in some money. All right. Now, it may not be a lot compared to some other businesses, but it's great. So, Mr. A&M, AM says congrats, Jordan.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm not saying I see all that money. I'm not.
you're right. You don't. But the thing is that just knowing that is obviously that is, um, the net, before all expenses. So, um, you know, check that out. Yes, wholesaling is great, but make sure you do it properly. If you have any leads and you just don't know what to do with them or anything like that, I'm in the Metro Detroit area. My number is right here at the bottom. Give me a call. I'm happy to JV with you. I do have buyers. If you're in the Genesee County, talk to Jordan. How can people get a hold of you, Jordan, if they want to get on your buyers list or anything like that?
I have a website. It's homesellsmith.com.
Okay.
Getting that set up at the time of this video, it's not
Mm-hmm.
there yet. But maybe by the time you see it, it will be.
That's
But for
awesome.
right now, my cell phone is 874-2725. And my email is jordansmithgo@gmail.
That is awesome. So anybody who wants to contact Jordan, go ahead and contact him. If you have any questions, concerns, or anything like that, by all means, reach out to us. Now, if you are somebody who wants to be a guest on my podcast, please do reach out to me. You can text me here at this number, or you can email me at randybuyshousesmi@gmail.com. So, and we can kind of go from there. But I'm happy to have you, Jordan. Thank you for telling us your story, and telling us like how. I'm hoping this helps at least one person out there. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
If it helps more, great. That's gravy. As long as it can help one person, that's awesome. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
No problem. I'm going to put you in the back. We're going to close down, but stay here and we'll. I'll chat with you in a minute. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I really do appreciate everyone who did come join live. We are a little bit over on time. That's awesome, though. I'm happy to go through. I wanted to share Jordan's story. He is an awesome guy. And, in my opinion, a lot of what he's gone through is what every beginner goes through. So the difference is a lot of other beginners say, I need to know everything before I even take one action. He took action even when he didn't know much. So, and that's what the whole point of this episode was, is take action and just follow up, get to know people. People are going to be, people are going to help you. If you're open with it, they'll help you. So with that being said, see you on the next video, see you on the next guest, with the next guest. Let's all do deals together.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from the